Episode 148 has burst onto the scene, and with it, hopefully more puzzlement, groantent, and of course, fun. I also need to mention this show is being pre-recorded, as I'm not going to be available later on in the week to do a live recording. And unfortunately, time has claimed yet another acting star this week. Terence Stamp, who famously played General Zod in Superman 2, died at the age of 87 earlier this week.
No. Kneel before Zod.
Rest in peace, Mr. Stamp. With the General's permission, we will move along with the show. Marina of Gosforth has verbaled her groan in this week for the audience groan. Your games this week are 50-50. Don't worry, yes or BS hasn't been taken away, just giving it a little break. Talking nonsense, the 5-point countdown, and the pre-show endgame, who, or what, or whatever I've selected, the hell am I, or where am I, or whatever it is. Once again, it's up to me to unclog the groany sewer and let the drain gurgle away. And with that, we get on with my groans. The weight gain blame game. And I've had many outtakes trying to do this, Groaners. This is probably about the 8th take or something now, so if I've done it wrong, it's getting left in. Let us get straight to this once and for all. There is psychology behind this. It is not McDonald's or other fast food places or even McCain oven chipses etc's fault that you are big boned. You made the choices about food just like I did. I weigh about 22 stone, but I don't look it due to being 5'10", and I wear my belly well. Stop blaming everyone but yourself. No one forces you to eat unhealthy or not exercise. It is down to you. Open door curiosity syndrome. This isn't a real syndrome, it's something I've named from my brain. This bugs the ever-loving crap out of me, and I'm noticing it more and more. When I'm walking behind someone in a corridor and there's an open door, for some reason they either stop and pop their head in, or they turn their head in the direction of the door for a quick look. What is the point of this? Especially if it's a toilet, you know what is in there. A toilet, a sink, and some paper towels. What's the curiosity for? These types of people are the first ones to die in horror movies. Repetitive dummy ability. These kinds of people seem to multiply in this world of ours. Again, repetitive dummy ability is not something real, it's something I've decided to name. They are the kind of people you show how to do something, or you advise them. They then do a complete 180 and bugger it all up completely, then come back and blame me for getting it wrong in the first place. I wonder if next time an enema with a plank of wood would teach them the errors in their methods. As I block the groan drain for a few moments, the next surge will come with the audience groan. But that is for later, because now I smell our first game in the form of 50-50, where you, my dear groaners, are asked a question and are given 2 answers to choose from. Depending on your knowledge, you've got a 50-50 chance of getting it right, hence the game name 50-50. Round 1. What was ID Software's best-selling game in the 90s? Was it A, Doom 2, or was it B, Quake? Pause your groaners, have a little think, answer, then unpause. Round 2. The Shakespearean play is titled The Merchant of... Is it A, Seville, or is it B, Venice? Pause your groaners, have a little think, answer, then unpause. Moving on to the last round, round 3. There have been how many Command and Conquer games? Is it A, 12, or is it B, 18? Pause your groaners, have a little think, answer, then unpause. And with that, we will consult the game answers later, because now, well, this is just nuts. This is crazy, this. Poor rabbits with what the... Colorado in America seems to be having an invasion occurring with rabbits who look like zombies. These rabbits have black horns protruding from their heads and tentacles coming from their mouths. It should be stated that the virus which causes this to happen to the bunny is not transmittable to humans, but is related to human papillomavirus. The growths eventually go on their own and don't harm the rabbit unless its vision is affected. But there is always one dozy sod out there: do not approach or touch these bunnies. Just because something cannot transmit doesn't mean one day it won't. Mother Nature, I gotta ask you, just what the... If that wasn't enough to give you a case of the creeps, we now pass the creepy torch over to Adam and Nicole for Creepy Corner, where your story for episode 148 is called Finally. Sarah Seal was awoken like any other day to the beating of the drums and the burning of the hot sun. The start of the day's duties. A boring day like any other in her eyes, yet to many it was the most productive of all. Sarah was like many in the village, one blessed by the air itself. An annual blessing ceremony when someone turns 16 allows them to receive a blessing by nature. The following day begins the refresh ceremony, where one of the blessed that year is returned to the skies above in a most honoured ceremony where their wings are removed and they are gracefully pushed off their floating island. There were bridges connecting to the other islands, but no one in this village ever left unless the Grand Council permitted it. Sarah was known to be quite lazy and against doing her daily rounds of chores. This year she turned 20. She was very used to her blessing by now and was surprisingly one of the best flyers around. To no one's surprise, Sarah's lackluster approach to anything gave her a blessing that couldn't have been more suitable: the blessing of the Alcan blue butterfly. Overnight, those wings sprouted from her back, and within only a few weeks, she was able to fly. She was able to fly pretty fast, but that was a given due to the nature of her blessing. The Alcan blue, a butterfly so lazy it tricks ants into raising its young. However, once it hatches and becomes a butterfly, the spell wears off, and they must fly fast to escape. Nothing could be more fitting for Sarah. In fact, to many it was strange that she wasn't picked for her year's refresh ceremony. Sarah had one job, and one job only, as she was not deemed worthy of any major tasks in her village. All she had to do every time it rained was to gather the dewdrops off all the plants. One simple task that everyone believed even she couldn't mess up. Yet somehow, she did several times. It didn't take long for everyone to realise that despite the simple task, they shouldn't have put her in charge of any part of the village's food supply. However, the rules were absolute and couldn't be changed. It had rained a lot overnight, which meant a lot of dew and raindrops needed to be collected before all fell off the leaves. Sarah took some heavy persuasion, but eventually she got to it. Just her alone in the forest, with the trees and the plants to collect as much as she could. It was times like these that she wished she had ants to do her bidding for her. However, she did hear a rather foreboding voice in her head instead. Finally! You can hear me. I don't have long. They'll be back soon. They know I'm here now, so I have to get you out of there today. Sarah, listen to me. The Grand Council building, you need to go there. Find the blue button, the voice responded. Sarah contemplated it, but she couldn't risk being in trouble again. She was already on her 3rd strike this month, and she may be lazy, but she's not stupid. 5 strikes and it's ultimate punishment. She's seen people walk out of that place before, and even she would never risk it for herself. However, the voice then made a good point. If she did this, it would only be her 4th strike. Plus it meant no more work. She wasn't due back to the village until evening, so they would never know. The perfect cover-up, she thought. So she dropped her buckets and flew back to the village, careful to remain unseen. Thankfully, her speed and being such a strong flyer got her to the Grand Council room without issue. The one time of day the unending security finally leaves, so she had minutes. A blue button had to be there somewhere. She opened every drawer, checked behind every painting, but no button, until she saw it, there on a desk under the lamp. She didn't know what it would do, but she pressed it, and on the wall a doorway opened. She heard footsteps, and whatever this was, she was getting punished for it. So she flew fast out the doorway, into the building light that would soon knock her out cold. A voice could be heard calling out to a girl in a tank. He was in a frenzy, rushing around pressing buttons and pulling levers as the girl panicked. until the liquid she was surrounded in finally drained and the tube opened up. She tried her best to open her eyes, but her vision was blurry. She would make out the sound of a guy around her age, a voice she recognised, one that was calling out to her but felt like he had been doing so for a long time. The guy wiped her eyes so she could see better and helped her stand up. Didn't I say I would finally set you free, Carla? I'm sorry it took so many years. I'm sorry it had become so many different people. Carla, until you were 17, Maria at 18, Carolyn at 19, Sarah at 20, and now finally, you're Carla once again. I should have saved you sooner, and for that I can never apologise enough. I tried to stop you, remember? At a blessing ceremony, I got myself sent off the air and refresh ceremony so I could find the truth. I knew they would come for you if I didn't, so I faked my blessing and kept it hidden so they wouldn't choose you. I've been out here ever since, waiting for you, trying to save you, the voice explained. What a cliffhanger to leave it on. Come on, Nicole. However, this story makes me wonder just how many past lives do some or all of us have, if you believe in that kind of thing. I know this isn't what the story's getting at, but it did set my mind off. Great writing as always, Admin Nicole. Now I spy, with my little groany eye, another game on the approach with the 5-point countdown. You all know this one by now. You've got to guess what I'm talking about. You start with 5 points. If you get it right at 5, but then change to a wrong answer at 4, you've got to start again and guess. Well, you get the idea. It'll come to you as I go along the game, Groaners, if you've never done this before. Round 5 for 5 points. This boy's toy was launched in 1966. Pause here, Groaners. Have a little think. Answer. Then, well, it's just a guess, then unpause, really. Round 4. They were a popular line of toys for boys. Pause here, Groaners. Chuck your guesses over, then unpause. Round 3 for 3 points. Hasbro closed down the toy manufacturer in 1994, thereby discontinuing production of the toy I'm talking about. If you know your toy history, this helps. Pause here, Groaners. Have a little think. Answer, well, guess, and then unpause. Round 2 for 2 points. Barbie is older than this toy. Pause here, Groaners. Hand your guesses over, then unpause. Last round for 1 point. A rare judo version of this toy sold at auction for just over £6,000, compared to its 1970 sale price of 12 shillings in the UK, which was 60 pence at the time in modern money. That was your last clue. The answer, what I'm talking about, will come later. I would give the answers to the games as you play along, but I'm going to make you wait. To borrow from a wrestler now, I can certainly smell what you groans are cooking with the audience groan. Marina gave me her piece verbally for this week's groan. Why is it that many people lose their common sense whilst driving? It drives me insane. Park going with the traffic, not against it. You then have to look like a donkey as you hold the line of traffic just because you didn't think. Know this, all of those drivers hate you at that moment. If you park with the traffic on the street, you'd be in and out no problem. Well, Marina, that was one hell of a car-based groan. I know you gave me another, but I need to find it for next week. I hope I do, or I'll have to ask you again. Sorry, or you could email it in. Help the host out. If you want to take part in the show, Groaners, hand your groantent in, got some feedback, or something else relating to the show, you can hand it in a number of ways. You can drop an email off to thegroanzonepod@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook groups under the Groan Zone Podcast Facebook group. You can join in live on Discord under the Groan Zone, where you can either leave messages or, like I said, take part live at Greenwich Mean Time, usually on a Friday, 8:30. You can contact either Admin Nicole on Facebook Messenger under Nicole Amos, or myself on Facebook Messenger under Mr. E. Groaner. And lastly, you can drop a comment off on any episode you've listened to on any platform you're on, and we will try and pick it up and then review it and put it in the show. We always look forward to hearing from you, Groaners, as always. Now, often, luck and life often go hand in hand. On the one hand, you have those who are lucky, and on the other hand, you've got those who must deal with, oh, unlucky. We've had people tune in from Hungary recently, and I'm sorry this is something concerning for your country, but I hope those concerned manage to pull off their hard work. The 1,000-year-old Pannonhalma Arch Abbey battling the unlucky fortune of facing a book-eating beetle called the bread or drugstore beetle due to his penchant for eating dry foodstuffs like grains, flour and spices. Why is this an issue? Because unfortunately they are also attracted to the gelatin and starch-based adhesives found in books. Can you see what I'm getting at here, groaners? If these beetles manage to get a seriously massive foothold in the Arch Abbey, then this could mean a loss of centuries of documented history. Who'd have thought a beetle would cause so much trouble? Unlucky for the Arch Abbey, but I wish them luck in fending off the little blighter and preserving history with hopefully little to no loss of any books. Good luck. Now again, groaners, it seems quick, but another game is upon us now with talking nonsense. Yes, you know what this one is about, groaners. It's where I spout utter gibberish at you, and it is really the English language, but just in reverse. Round 1. China and a penguin share one of these. Your nonsense is an RIP. Pause here, groaners. Have a little think. Answer, then unpause. Round 2. You can use this to preserve some foods in jars. Your nonsense is again. Pause here, groaners. Have a little think. Answer, then unpause. And last round, round 3. Bulletproof vests or other items can contain this or be laminated with it to be bulletproof. Your nonsense is Alvec. Pause here, groaners. Have a little think for the final time in this episode. Answer, then unpause. The answers to talking nonsense will come later. And now we must name our zero of the week. Apologies, groaners, this may distress some of you. I love my fish as much as the next person, but as much as I hate them, I would never harm a seagull or a herring gull. One total loose cannon out there felt the fire of revenge burn brightly and grabbed the gull and kicked it to death. Because the herring gull I should say, took the fish off his plate. He kicked the bird to death. Let me just reiterate that, groaners. He kicked an animal to death. This happened earlier this month on the 4th of August at Marine Parade in Barmouth, Gwynedd in Wales, outside a fish and chip shop at approximately 1 PM. That's Greenwich Mean Time, by the way. If anyone has any information, the RSPCA are asking you for help identifying someone of interest to the case. If anyone has any information, please contact the RSPCA and hand in the information to them. It should be known that seagulls may be a pest, but they are a protected species under UK law. This guy is definitely now a marked 0, and I really do hope they catch you. Now we go from zeros straight into, well, that's creepy. Because of course Nicole's had her turn, but now it is my turn. This apparently true creepy experience comes from a user on the website Jezebel. It is Jezebel, isn't it? Yeah, Jezebel. Sounds weird, but it's just a place where they send in creepy things and other various stuff. And this was taken from October the 29th, 2024. So full credit goes to What's Her Name. Back in the late 2000s, I was in my early 20s and living happily for a few years as a broke expat in Berlin. One of my roommates, who was from the UK, and I were out late-ish seeing a band play, maybe around midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. And afterwards we were going home, walking through a relatively central but quiet part of the city towards a subway station entrance. We were in high spirits, feeling jolly after a couple of drinks and a fun night out. Not too drunk, just on our way to being tipsy, and we were laughing and chatting, probably somewhat a bit too loudly, as we headed arm in arm towards the subway entrance, which was ahead of us down at the far end of a long, quiet street. It was late October, early November, and still warm enough for it to feel nice to walk outside, and the misty air hung in yellow halos under the streetlights. Just as a little gust of wind blew some leaves across the pavement in front of us, we both became aware of a figure walking ahead of us in the mist. From the back it appeared to be an older woman, stooped over, carrying bags in each hand and walking with a very pronounced limp, sort of dragging one of her legs along behind her. Aye, we were speaking English and nearly about to pass around her on the sidewalk when the woman cried out rather exaggeratedly in English, but with a thick German accent, do excuse me, groaners, "Oh help! Won't somebody help me?" She didn't sound frightened or worried, so much as deeply demanding, and her tone of voice suggested she expected to be helped. My roommate tried to keep us moving ahead past her, but I softened and slowed down my pace, because after all, this was an elderly woman carrying bags late at night, and she clearly couldn't walk very well. I asked her what she needed help with, and she said, "It's my leg, help me carry the bags, I live just over there." My German accent's horrible, and she nodded towards an apartment building entryway a half a block up the street. My inner good Samaritan instincts kicked in, and I responded automatically, "Oh, of course we'll help you." My roommate seemed decidedly less enthused for some reason, but begrudgingly followed me as we each grabbed one of the woman's bags and carted them to the doorstep up the street. As the woman's face came into sharper relief underneath a nearby streetlight, I realised that she looked exactly like a witch out of a German fairy tale. Bent posture, check. A large wart on her nose, check. Greyish white straggly hair, check. And she was wearing dark wool clothing with a hood, also check. I was honestly taken aback by her appearance and nearly gasped out loud, but again, wanting to be polite, I pushed this to the back of my mind. Who cares what she looks like, I told myself. She's just an old lady who needs our help. When we arrived at her building's doorstep, the entryway door was surprisingly ajar. Not the norm at all in the neighbourhood we were in, and she pushed it open easily, suddenly seeming to possess more strength than she had a few moments ago, and leaned forward to hold it open for me so that I could go in first and she would be behind me. And she would be behind me. She gestured up a dark and dingy flight of stairs and breathed, "Just up the stairs, just up the stairs." I froze in my tracks for a second in the doorway. As my tipsy 23-year-old brain tried to puzzle it all out, logically the polite thing to do would be to carry the bag up the stairs for this woman, right? But then again, all the hairs were standing up on the back of my neck. Mine would be too, groaners. Oh, mine would be too. And the building's hallway and narrow staircase, in the dim fluorescent yellow light, looked awfully foreboding. I could just make out a doorway at the top of the stairs on the right-hand side that was also slightly ajar, leading to an apartment. An air of intensely stale, musty smoke wafted down the stairs. And then there was the tone of stark urgency in the woman's voice as she urged me to step fully inside and get up the stairs as quickly as possible. If I had to describe her tone, it wasn't too far from the voice of a cartoon villain rubbing their hands together whilst hatching a nefarious plan. As I stood in the entryway, tipsily trying to weigh the very bad feeling in the pit of my stomach against my lifelong fear of being impolite, I actually giggled at how absurdly horror movie-esque this moment felt. So much so that it couldn't be a real threat. Right? It was too spot on, so I must be imagining it. Fortunately, my roommate, who had seen more crap in her life than I had at that point, literally yelled out, "Oh hell no!" hooked her arm into mine and pulled me out the door and down the street as quickly as possible. The old woman yelled disappointedly after us as my roommate whisked me across the street and down the subway stairs, back into the safety of a warm, brightly lit public space full of people. Once we had safely escaped, my roommate shared the two things that had set off definitive alarm bells in her head. One, she was certain that the woman's limp wasn't there initially as she walked ahead of us, and that it had only appeared as we got closer to her. And two, in her words, as you stood in the doorway, I suddenly knew that she had a creepy adult son waiting for us at the top of the stairs who was going to chain you to the bed. Perhaps it was just our fanciful imaginations, but I've always felt grateful to my roommate's instincts for keeping us away from whatever was at the top of those stairs. Well, groaners, what would you do in that situation? I sure as hell would not go up the stairs on my own or with a friend. In fact, if I was suspicious, I'd go, "No, sorry my dear, I've got a bad back and I can't pick your bags up for you. But I will see if anyone further along the walking path can help you out." And then I wouldn't find anybody and I would just leave. But yeah, that's the story for abduction. And that apparently really happened. So, in the words of me, well, that's certainly creepy, isn't it? And this moves us on to our last game for the show, which is what the hell am I? The picture is a predator that stalks many dangerous creatures. Now in the movie, it's not named at all, but I want the name of the species that the predator is. Arnold Schwarzenegger's fought against this predator. Daniel Glover has fought against this, or Danny Glover's fought against this predator, as have many others across various franchise movies. I want the species name. Calling out all sci-fi groaner nerds out there. You know exactly what the name of the species is. The picture will be on Podbean, the Facebook group, and Discord, and I really will make sure it's up this time, because I forgot last time. I'm sure I did. Positive I did. If I did, my apologies, groaners. If I didn't, well, again, still sorry. And now, the game answers, groaners. And of course, the answer to this, the pictorial game, will come next week. Game answer time. Starting us off, we will go with talking nonsense game answers. Round 1 was an emperor, because of course you have an emperor of China, and you have an emperor penguin. Round 2, everyone should know, preserving items in jars, for the most part it is vinegar. And round 3, if you've seen the film RoboCop, or similar things, or you know your police vest or anything else, the answer is Kevlar. Well done if you managed to spin any of that gibberish into English to score points there, groaners. The 5-point countdown solution now. The answer was, of course, Action Man, if you know your toys and your history about toys. Yes, Action Man, a well-known, albeit discontinued, plaything. Be honest about where you scored points in this game. If you got it at 5, but then changed your mind later, and you got 3, don't say, oh, I got 5 because I got it originally. Not how the game works. And now we have the answers for the game of 50-50. Round 1, if you know your game history, the answer was, of course, Doom 2, which was A. Round 2, if you know your Shakespeare, the answer was, of course, B, The Merchant of Venice. And round 3, there have actually been B, 18 Command & Conquer games, because of course there was a really rubbish first-person shooter, which I bought. Oh dear. Well done if you scored points during the course of this game, groaners. And now we have the solution to last week's anagram anxiety from Admin Nicole. Your anagram solution was astronomer. It seems fairly obvious now, but when faced with the anagrams that Admin Nicole comes up with, I have no blessed clue. Well done if you solved this, groaners. And also, with that, massively well done if you scored any points during the course of the show. That brings us to the end of the episode for another week. Tune in next week and the week after, because I think episode 150 is going to be a special. And of course next week, it's also Jaws' birthday. Yep, August 29th. There we go. Yep, the big shark is, I think, how old is he? I think he's in his 50s now. Yep, the plastic rubber shark. I think he's rubber or plastic. Can't quite remember. But yes, he's quite old now. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm going to let the show go now, groaners. Tune in next week. Take care. Bye-bye. The Alcan Blue, a butterfly so lazy it tricks ants. I lost my train of thought there. Nothing could be more fitting for Sarah. In fact, to many, it was strange. Battling the unlucky foot. This apparently true could be